Don't delete your truck. It's not a good idea. Now, obviously, everyone is entitled to their opinion. And I found an article that's discussing this in detail, why you should not delete your truck. So let's talk about it. You know, I like to look at things on both perspectives. At the end of the day, there's pros and cons to everything that you do. And sometimes for some people, the cons may outweigh the pros, which makes it hard for you to make a decision that may not benefit you. So that's why we're doing this video. We gotta discuss this thing. Actually, someone sent me this article and I thought it was kind of funny. Now, most of you guys know I'm doing what's called weight loss program. It's code, obviously, for, trying to lose some weight here, trying to lose some weight. And my truck needs to lose weight too because it's heavy, super heavy. So we're gonna discuss that. But let's go ahead and jump into this article. I really think that you guys need to understand where I come from. I'm gonna say this real quickly. I've never had anything against emissions equipment. I've always had an issue with that word control. Remember that, emissions control. Who are they trying to control? Think about it. Who buys diesel trucks, right? Just saying. So let's jump into this article. I wanna get you guys' thoughts on this. It's pretty funny. RealTruck.com did publish this article and it's called "What is a Deleted Diesel Truck and Why You Shouldn't Do It." The article starts off discussing why this term exists, and before 2008, diesels had extremely lax emission requirements, allowing millions of metric tons of pollutants to enter the atmosphere annually. However, all this changed because the EPA in 2008 decided to add all this stuff here, which they say significantly cleaned up tailpipe emissions. No longer would diesel pickups spout black soot from their tailpipes or force surrounding drivers to roll up their windows to avoid noxious fumes. At least that's what the EPA's plan was. The diesel community is a rather resourceful bunch. Within months, the EPA's new regulations, companies began manufacturing emission defeat devices, allowing diesel pickup owners to remove the exhaust filter components and deactivate the EGR systems. Around this time, the slang terms delete and deleted diesel came about, referencing the removal of post-2008 diesel pickup emissions systems. I know this article is going to be a little tough for some of you guys, but hang in there with me. I have to respond to the diesel community is a resourceful bunch. That to me made me laugh when I first read this article. So always remember this. The automotive world since the beginning of time has always tried to get a little bit out of their car, truck, SUV, whatever. Everyone's always trying to get a little bit more out of it. Why would diesel community be any different? And remember, early on, emissions equipment was unreliable, right? So people who own businesses probably were removing that stuff just simply to keep their trucks on the road, right? The article goes on to say, in this guide, we're tackling the topic of deleted diesel pickups, including why diesel owners choose to delete emissions, emission system components, and our justifications for leaving your truck emission system intact. If you debated deleting your diesel, read on. So I'm going to really discuss this last part here, okay? Now they're going to discuss, why guys decided to delete their truck or why guys do decide to. If you're not working your truck, obviously this is where deleting becomes almost necessary because obviously diesels need heat and these emissions components definitely need the heat to burn off a lot of the soot that gets built up, especially like in the DPF. And the EGR is no different from that too because it can get clogged with a lot of soot over time. So with that being said, when you're planning to do a delete on your truck, you are going to be deleting the DLC and the SCR, which are pretty much like your catalytic converters, your DPF, which is going to catch a lot of that soot. And then you're going to be taking off these filters here. Obviously you have the DEF system, so you'll be taking off that tank and the injectors, your EGR system. This is something that is probably the biggest reason why people want to delete their truck, is simply to get this off of there. So why leave your diesel emission system intact? This is where I want to start off here. Now, this article may seem like an advocacy for deleting a diesel pickup rather than a deterrent, but don't be mistaken. At Real Truck, we don't condone deleting your diesel emission systems. We rebuke it. In this section, we're covering the countless downsides of deleting a diesel pickup that significantly outweighs any benefits. Most of you guys know the main reason why I purchased a diesel truck in the past was to tow our 40-foot fifth wheel. And at that time, I had no intentions of ever doing any performance upgrades because, one, I couldn't afford to do so, and two, I couldn't afford to do so. But the reality is, fast forward a few years, I had my Ram 3500, and I decided I wanted to start looking at some performance upgrades. Now, this is around the time when I found out about the Diesel Brothers, Corey Willis with PPEI, and I was really shocked. I was absolutely dumbfounded how strict they were on diesel trucks. Had no clue. And then I read the Chevron deference, and I will say that really did kind of radicalize me a little bit. I'll use that word because I became very, very angry with how they hung their hats so strong on this, simply because there's a lot of things that they could be doing that could help the environment that we can see and really show us that they're capable of doing something to help better America. But this is where they really just struck gold, because you saw the lawsuits. There were millions upon millions of dollars worth of lawsuits. But on top of that, these were small businesses in America. And obviously, these guys are probably Republican, So the reality is this really did bother me a lot. Hence why, again, I am the way I am today, because seeing how these people took this small thing and just blew it out of proportion. Obviously, again, I have nothing against emissions components. They're necessary, and some people will never take them off their trucks. But if someone wants to make their truck more reliable or get better fuel economy, why should there be restrictions to this extreme? I'm sure most of you guys know the answer to that question. Now let's go ahead and go over the countless downsides of deleting. First thing, voiding your truck's factory warranty. So I can agree that your powertrain and drivetrain warranty are pretty much gone because you're tuning the truck and you're adding power, and the manufacturer can pretty much blame any defects on that, right? Same thing goes for your transmission. Now, if you do have any issues with like anything on the interior that would be covered under the bumper to bumper, then sure, that warranty is still available for you to use. However, if your transmission were to go out, that is something that you may have to build in the future to make it stronger to withstand the extra power that you added. And with that being said, the second point here, initial cost, is a lot higher. Aside from the fact that you building your engine and transmission to be stronger, the labor to take off emissions component, if you don't know how to do it yourself, is very expensive. It could cost $3,000 to $5,000. Same thing goes for just the tuning. Tuning can cost $3,500, and then all the parts that you need. So you could be out $8,000 to $12,000 doing this type of work, not including building the transmission and the engine to make more power. Legal issues, we've kind of discussed this already. It is a federal crime. The question to this is obviously, why is this so extreme? The answer is, who buys diesel trucks? That's why. Increased tailpipe emission. So yes, I understand this aspect of it, but let's talk about this for a second. It's been nearly 20 years since they've added these strict emissions control devices on these trucks. 20 years. Now, out of that time, has the EPA released any data that proves that these devices have made a huge difference? 20 years now. That's a long time. Is there any data? For example, maybe asthma's at an all-time low, right? Or this part of the country is a lot more healthier because this is where a lot of diesel trucks were going. Or maybe diesel owners are just more healthier. Something that will prove that this craziness that they've gone to with diesel trucks actually has benefited us? Here's a good question for you. In this country today, how many cars have diesel engines? Remember, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Volkswagen. I remember Chevy. The Chevy Cruze had a diesel at one point. How many cars today have diesels? Answer is none. So here's another thing. Lee Zeldin has pretty much told us the truth, right? He said greenhouse gas. There's really no data that proves that this stuff actually works. In fact, they said DEF causes cancer. It's killing bees. But you're not allowed to talk about that. I remember one of my friends went to a meeting, and in that meeting, General Motors showed on the screen, because they are selling EVs, they get to continue, or I use the word, they are allowed to sell internal combustion engines. They can continue to sell them because of EVs. That was a thing. So, again, nothing against realtruck.com. Not throwing any shade at them. They're allowed to have an opinion. Remember this, guys. I built an emission compliant truck with Banks. They do that. If you're someone who doesn't want to deal with removing the emission stuff, by all means, the cold air intakes, the DPF back exhausts, the tuners, the stuff that they provide actually help my truck get better fuel economy with the emissions intact. But if someone wants to remove those things, why is it this strict to do so? Why is it kind of a gray area in the sense of like, who knows what might happen? Is there any government oversight? We saw that with Diesel Brothers and PPEI. I mean, talk about interpreting the law the way they saw fit. That's what happened. So again, I feel as though if you want to keep your truck emission intact, you should have the right to do so. And if you decide you want to make it more reliable, even at the expense of your warranty, that's the risk you take. So I hope you guys liked the video. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. I think that at the end of the day, Road Truck, I mean, they make a good argument. You know, I think a lot of guys out there who are thinking about deleting, once they see how expensive it is, that is a good point. It's not cheap. It is not cheap. And a lot of people are a little leery of doing it because they don't want to have, obviously, government oversight in the future, obviously, coming after them. So that's just the other part of it too. I mean, reality for me is I may not be in this country in a few years, so we'll see. I'm just kidding. Just joking. But yeah, I hope you guys liked the video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Peace.